Hey, my reactor. So this is the final chapter of the fight, and then we'll move on to the storm. We're gonna read this chapter together. Chapter 16. I went back to help Sarah and Curry the next day. Rufus said I didn't have to, but as tedious as the work was, I could stand it easier than I could stand more long hours of boredom. And now that I knew Kevin was coming, my back inside didn't hurt seem to hurt as much. Then Jake Edwards came in to destroy my newfound peace. It was amazing how much misery the man could cause doing the same job Luke had managed to do without hurting anyone. You, he said to me. He knew my name. You do the wash. Tess is going to the field today. Poor Tess. Waylon had tried had Waylon had tired of her as a bedmate and passed her casually to Edwards. She had been afraid of Edwards. She had been afraid Edwards would send her to the fields where he could keep an eye on her. With Alice and I in the house, she knew she could be spared. She had cried with the fear that she would be spared. You do everything I you do everything they tell you, she wept. And they still treat you like an old dog. Go here, open your legs, go there, bust your back. What they care? I ain't no supposed to have no feelings. She had sat with me crying while I laid on my stomach sweating and hurting and knowing I wasn't as bad off as I thought I was. I would be a lot worse off now though if I obeyed Edwards. He had no right to give me orders and he knew it. His authority was over the field hands. But today, Rufus and Tom Wayne had gone into town, leaving Edwards in charge, leaving him several hours to show us how important he was. I heard him outside the cookhouse trying to bully Nigel, and I heard Nigel answer first. I heard Nigel answer, I'm just doing what Mr. Tom told me to do. Finally, he bragged. Mr. Jake, you put your hands on me, you gonna go get hurt. Now that's all. Edward backed off. Nigel was big and strong and not one to make idle threats. Also, Rufus tended to back Nigel and Waylon tended to back Rufus. Edward had cursed Nigel, then come into the cookhouse to bother me. I had neither the size nor the strength to frighten him, especially now, but I knew what a day of wash would do to my back and side. I had enough pain surely. Mr. Edwards, I'm not supposed to be washing. Mr. Rufus told me not to. It was a lie, but Rufus would back me too. In some ways, I can still trust him. You lying nigga, you do what I tell you to do. Edward boomed over me. You think you been whipped? You don't know what a whipping is yet. He carried this whipped around with him. It was like part of his arm load and black with his leg weight. But what? He dropped the coal of it. He dropped the coal of it free, and I went out. God help me, and I tried to do the wash. I couldn't face another beating so soon. I just couldn't. When Edward was gone, Alice came out the Curry cabin and began to help me. I felt sweat on my back, mingling with silent tears of frustration and anger. My back had already begun to ache dully and felt dully ashamed. Slavery was a long, show process of dulling. You stop beating the clothes before you fall over, Alice told me. I'll do it. You go back to the cookhouse. He might come back, I said. You might get in some trouble. It wasn't her trouble I was worried about, it was mine. I didn't want to be dragged out of the cookhouse and whipped again. Not me, she said. He knows where I sleep at night. I nodded. She was right. As long as she was under Rufus' protection, Edward might curse her, but he wouldn't touch her. Just as he hasn't touched Tess until Waylon was finished with her. Thanks, Alice, but what? Who's that? I looked around. There was a white man. Ray bended. Hold up. There was a white man. I know y'all. There was a white man, gray, bearded, and dusty, riding around the side of the main house towards us. I thought at first that it was the minister. He was a friend and sometimes dinner guest of Tom Whaley's in spite of Whaley's indifference to the religions. But no children gathered around this man as he rode. The kids always mobbed the minister and his wife too, who he brought her along. The couple dispensed candy and safe Bible verses. Service, be obedient to them that are the be obedient to them that are your masters. The kids got candy for repeating the verses. I saw two little girls staring at the gray-bearded stranger, but no one approached him or spoke to him. He rode straight back to us, stopped, sat looking at both of us uncertainly. I opened my mouth to tell him the waiters weren't home, but in that moment I got a good look at him. I dropped one of Rufus' good white shirts into the dirt and stumbled over to the fence. Dana, he said softly. The question mark in his voice scared me. Don't he know me? Had I changed so much he hasn't heard or know? Wait a minute. Has I changed so much he had it? Beard or no beard? Captain, get down. I can't reach you up there. As he was off the horse and over the laundry yard fence, pulling me to him before I could take another breath, the dull ache in my back and shoulders roared to life. Suddenly I was struggling to get away from him. He let me go, confused. What the? I went to him again because I couldn't keep away, but I caught his arms before he could get them around me. Don't. My back is sore. Sore for what? From running away to find you. Oh, Kevin. He held me gently now for several seconds, and I thought if we could just go home then, and at that moment everything would be right. Finally, Kevin stood back from me a little, looked at me without letting me go. Who beat you? He asked quietly. I told him I ran away. Who? He said. Was it waiting again? Kevin forgot. Kevin, forget it. Forget it? Yes, please forget it. I might have to live here again someday. I shook my head. Hate waiting all you want to. I do. But don't do anything. Don't do anything to him. Let's just get out of here. It was him then, yes. He turned slowly and stared into the main house. His face was lined and grim, where it wasn't hidden by the beard. He looked more than 10 years older than I had last seen him. There was a jagged scar across his forehead, the remnants of what might have been a bad wound. This place, this time, hadn't been any kinder to him than it had been to me. But what had it made him? What had it made of him? What might he be willing to do now that he would not have done before? Kevin, please, let's go. He turned that same hard stare on me. Do you do anything? Hold up. Do anything to them, and I'll suffer for it. I whispered. Let's go now. He stared at me a moment longer, then sighed. Rubbed his head across his forehead. He looked at Alice, and because he didn't speak to her, just kept looking, I turned to look at her too. She was watching us, watching dry-eyed, but with more pain than I ever seen on another person's face. My husband had come to me finally. Hers would never be coming to her. Then the look was gone and her mask of toughness was in place again. You better do like she says, she told Kevin softly. Get her out of here while you can. No telling what our good masters will do if you don't. You're Alice, aren't you? Asked Kevin. She nodded as she would not have to wait or Rufus. They would have gotten a dull, dry yes sir. used to see uh, used to see you around here sometimes, she said, back when things made sense. He made it sound not quite a laugh. Was there ever such a time? He glanced at me, then back at her, preparing. Good Lord, he murmured to himself. Then to her, you going to be all right here, finishing the work by yourself? Go, be fine, she said. Just get her out of here. He finally seemed convinced. Get your things, he told me. I almost told him to forget about my things. Extra clothes, medicine, toothbrush, pens, paper, whatever. But here, some of those things were irreplaceable. I climbed the fence, went to the house, and up the attic. As quickly as I could and stuffed everything into my bag, somehow I got out again without being seen, without having to answer questions. At the laundry yard fence, Kevin waited, feeding something to his mirror. I looked at the mirror, wondering how tired she was. How far would she carry two people before she had to rest? How far could Kevin go before he had to rest? I looked at him, and as I reached him and could read weariness now in the dusty line of his face, I wondered how fast he had traveled to reach me. When had he slept last? For a moment we stood wasting time, staring at each other. We couldn't help it. I couldn't anyway. New lines and all. He was so damn beautiful. It's been 5 years for me, he said. I know, I whispered. Abruptly he turned away. Let's go. Let's put this place behind us for good. Please, God, but not very likely. I turned to say goodbye to Alice, called her name once. She was beating a pair of Rufus' pants, and she kept beating them with no break in her rhythm to indicate that she had heard me. Alice, I called louder. She said she did not turn, did not stop her beating and beating up all those pants, though. I was certain now that she heard me. Kevin laid a hand on my shoulder, and I glanced at him. Then again at her. Goodbye, Aunt Alice, I said. This time not expecting any answer. There was none. Kevin mounted and helped me up behind him. As we headed away, I leaned against Kevin's sweaty back and waited for the regular thumps of her beating to fade. But we could still hear it faintly when we met Rufus on the road. Rufus was alone. I was glad of that at least. But he stopped a few feet ahead of us, frowning, deliberately blocking our way. Oh, hell, I muttered. You were just going to leave, Rufus said to Kevin. No thanks, nothing at all. Just take her and go. Kevin stared at him silently for several seconds, stared until Rufus began to look uncomfortable instead of indignant. That's right, Kevin said. Rufus blinked. Look, he said in a milder tone. Look, why don't you stay for dinner? My father would be back by then. He wanted you to stay. You can tell your father. I dug my fingers into Kevin's shoulders, cutting off the rush of words before they became insulting in a content as well as in a content as well as his tone. Tell him we're in a hurry, Kevin finished. Ruth did not move from blocking our paths. He looked at me. Goodbye, Ruth, I said quietly. And without warning, with no change in his mood, Rufus turned silently and trained his rifle on us. I knew a little about firearms now. It wasn't wise for any but the most trusted slaves to show an interest in them. But then I had been trusted before I ran away. Rufus' gun was a flintlock, a long, slender Kentucky rifle. He had even let me fire it a couple of times before, and I had looked down the barrel of it. And I looked down the barrel of one like it for his sake. This one, however, was aimed more at Kevin. I stared at it, then at the young man holding it. I kept thinking I knew him, And he kept proving to me that I didn't. Ruth, what are you doing? I demand. Inviting Kevin to dinner, he said. And to Kevin, get down. I think Daddy might want to talk to you. People kept warning me about him, dropping hints that he was meaner than he seemed to be. Sarah had warned me, and most of the time, she loved him like one of the sons she had lost. And I had seen the marks he occasionally left on Alice. But he had never been that way with me, not even when he was angry enough to be. I had never feared him as I feared his father, even now. I wasn't as frightened as I probably should have been. I wasn't frightened for myself. That was why I challenged him. Ruth, if you shoot anybody, it better be me. Dana, shut up, said Kevin. You think I won't, said Rufus. I think if you don't, I'll kill you. Kevin got down quickly and hauled me down too. He didn't understand the kind of relationship Ruth and I had, how dependent we were on each other. Rufus understood though. No need for any talk of killing, he said gently, as though he was quieting an angry child. And then to Kevin in a more normal tone, I just think Daddy might have something to say to you. About what? Kevin said. Well, about her keep, maybe. My keep, I exploded, pulling away from Kevin. My keep. I work hard every day. I've been here until your father beat me so badly I couldn't work. You people owe me, and you goddamn it owe me more than you could ever pay. He swung the grapple to where I wanted it, straight at me. Now I will either go him into shooting me, or shame him into letting us go, or possibly I will go home. I might go home wounded or even dead, but one way or another, I will be away from him this time, this place. And if I went home, Kevin will go with me. I caught his head and held it. I caught his hand and held it. What are you going to do, Ruth? Keep us here at gunpoint so you can rob Kevin? Go back to the house, he said. His voice had gone hard. Kevin and I looked at each other and I spoke softly. I already know all I ever want to find out about being a slave, I told him. I'd rather he shot than go back in there. I won't let them keep you, Kevin promised. Come on. No, I glared at him. You stay or go as you please. I'm not going back in that house. Ruth was cursing in disgust. Kevin, put her over your shoulders and bring her in. Kevin didn't move. I would have been amazed if he had. Still trying to get other people to do your dirty work for you, aren't you, Ruth? I said bitterly. First your father, now Kevin. To think I wasted my time saving your worthless life. I stepped towards the mirror and caught her as though to remount, or caught her reins as though to remount. At that moment, Rufus' composure broke. You're not leaving, he shouted. He sort of crouched around the gun, clearing on the verge of fire. Dana, damn you, you're not leaving me. He was going to shoot. I had pushed him too far. I was honest all over again, rejecting him, terrified in spite of myself. I dove past the mirror's head, not caring how I felt as long as I put something between myself and the rifle. I hit the ground and not too hard, trying to scrabble up, and found that I couldn't. My balance was gone. I heard shouting, Kevin's voice, Rufus' voice. Suddenly I saw the gun, blurred, but seemingly only inches from my head. I had hit it and missed. It wasn't quite where it appeared to be. Everything was distorted and blurred. Kevin, I screamed. I couldn't leave him behind again. Not even in my screams made Rufus sigh. Something landed heavy on my back and I screamed again. This time in pain, everything went dark. So y'all, we on to the next chapter which is the last chapter of Kindred, and it's the storm. So I will be back, and we'll be almost finished with the book. Not to as entirely, but we'll be almost finished. Bye, my. Yeah.